Caligula. What comes to your mind when you hear that name? I'm sure horrifying images flash before your eyes. The infamous mad emperor who made his horse a senator, declared war on the sea, and pushed the boundaries of immorality. History books and movies have always portrayed him like this, the greatest tyrant Rome ever saw, a monster whose cruelty rivaled his madness. But what if it's all a huge lie? What if this portrait of a madman was actually a smear campaign masterfully crafted by his enemies after his death? Let's unravel this knot together in this video. Let's put propaganda aside and chase the truth. Let's journey through Caligula's tragic childhood, his rise as Rome's great hope, and his eventual fall into damnation. Let's honestly ask, was Caligula truly insane? Or was he an extremely intelligent yet equally ruthless politician whom we've misunderstood for 2,000 years? To understand the monster, we must first look at the terrifying world that created him, and the human within. Our story doesn't start with fear, but with immense hope. Caligula, whose real name was Gaius, wasn't just any child. His father was the beloved of the entire Roman Empire Germanicus, a superstar general, handsome, charismatic, adored by both the public and the army. He even took little Gaius with him on military campaigns. The soldiers adored the boy so much that they nicknamed him Caligula, meaning little boots, after his tiny military sandals. Imagine your father is seen as a demigod, and everyone expects the same from you. Even as a child, Caligula carried an incredible burden. When the people looked at him, they didn't just see a new emperor. They saw a copy of their beloved Germanicus. But this joyful picture soon turned into a nightmare. When Caligula was still a child, his father suddenly died. Rumors spread Emperor Tiberius, jealous of Germanicus' popularity, had him poisoned. And this was only the beginning of the tragedy. When his mother returned to Rome seeking revenge, Tiberius systematically destroyed the entire family. Caligula watched helplessly as his mother and two brothers were declared traitors and left to die. The man who held power had slaughtered his entire family, and Caligula was the only surviving male child. Now pause for a moment. Caligula's infamous cruelty and paranoia, perhaps these didn't stem from madness, but from these horrific traumas. As a child, he learned the deadly nature of power and the danger of trust in the harshest way possible. And then, fate delivered its cruelest blow. Caligula was summoned to live with the very man who had destroyed his family, Emperor Tiberius, at his infamous palace in Capri. Historians describe Capri as a nest of vipers where intrigue, immorality, and paranoia reigned. Can you imagine living under the same roof as the man who murdered your family, smiling at him daily, constantly acting? Caligula mastered the art of survival. He played his role so well that people said, no better slave, no worse master could be found. But Tiberius wasn't a fool. He is said to have remarked, I am raising a viper for the Roman people. Capri was Caligula's school. But he didn't learn governance there. He learned the rules of tyranny. He learned that power was limitless, cruelty was a tool, and senators were mere pawns. When he became emperor, his role model wasn't Augustus' diplomatic genius, but Tiberius' paranoid and brutal rule. When Tiberius finally died in 37 AD, Rome erupted in celebration. A new emperor sat on the throne, 24-year-old Caligula, son of the beloved Germanicus. His early months were like a dream. He abolished taxes for the people, pardoned exiles, opened the treasury for feasts and games. Rome was basking in spring, like joy. It felt like the good old days had returned. Then, just as everything seemed perfect, in October of that year Caligula fell gravely ill. The entire empire held its breath and prayed for him, and he recovered. But ancient sources all agree the man who returned wasn't the same. The hopeful young ruler was gone, replaced by a monster. This illness marked the greatest turning point in the Caligula legend. But what really happened? Did brain fever turn him into a beast? Or did he uncover a conspiracy on his deathbed that justified his deep mistrust of everyone? The mystery begins here. Some say he suffered from epilepsy since childhood. Others believe the fever left permanent brain damage. There are theories ranging from lead poisoning to genetic disorders. All of these could explain his sudden rages, insomnia, and paranoia. A more chilling theory argues that Caligula wasn't mad at all. Instead, he was a ruthlessly logical political actor. After witnessing the true face of power in Capri, he grew to despise Rome's hypocritical, republic-like system. According to this view, all his mad acts were a conscious strategy, a theater of cruelty designed to humiliate senators, prove their impotence, and establish an absolute monarchy where the emperor was a living god. In other words, he wasn't losing control. He was tearing the system down on purpose. Which one is true? Perhaps both. Maybe Caligula, scarred by trauma and illness, used his instability as a weapon to achieve calculated yet merciless political goals. Let's now revisit Caligula's most infamous, mad acts, but with the rational tyrant theory in mind. Get ready for the most famous story. Caligula planned to make his horse, Incitatus, a consul. He built the horse a marble stable, adorned it with jewels. But what if this wasn't madness? What if he was saying to the senators, "You're so useless and insignificant. Even my horse can do your job"? It was one of history's greatest insults. A joke so profound, we've mistaken it for insanity for 2,000 years. Another strange event, Caligula had hundreds of ships aligned to create a floating bridge stretching for miles across the sea, and he rode his horse back and forth on it for days. Ancient writers claimed it was to defy the gods, but modern historians point out this luxurious bridge was built right in front of the villas of Rome's wealthiest senators. It was a massive political show, meant to humiliate his rivals on their own doorsteps. And the strangest of all, Caligula supposedly took his army to the English Channel, declared war on Neptune, and ordered his soldiers to stab the sea and collect seashells as spoils of war. But wait, what if that's not what happened? Some scholars believe this story arose from a mistranslation. The Latin word conchae, seashells, may have been confused with musculi, military huts or field structures. So, the order might have been a perfectly logical command to dismantle the army's camp, later twisted by hostile historians into a tale of madness. The war between Caligula and the Senate was no longer covered. He forced senators to serve him, to donate their wealth to the state. But what finally broke the camel's back weren't political moves. It was personal insults. He constantly mocked Cassius Chaerea, commander of the Praetorian Guard, for his high-pitched voice, humiliating him in public. The insults became unbearable. On January 24, 41 AD, during a festival, Chaerea and his fellow conspirators cornered Caligula in a palace corridor. They stabbed him repeatedly. Their rage was so intense, they even killed his wife and their tiny daughter by smashing her head against a wall. After his death, the Senate enacted their final revenge. They gave him Rome's most severe punishment, damnatio memoria, the damnation of memory. Every statue of him was destroyed, his name erased from all records. But here's the irony: the more they tried to erase him, the more unforgettable he became. The empty pedestals and scratched out names all whispered, who was here? And the answer came from his enemy's version, a monster so horrifying, he had to be erased. This, Razor, was in fact the final and most successful propaganda move, cementing Caligula's image as a mad beast. So, who was Caligula? Madman, monster, misunderstood genius. The simple, mad label clearly falls short. He was definitely cruel, egotistical, and ruthless, but he was also a trauma victim. One who endured unimaginable childhood pain and learned politics from the most merciless of mentors. Perhaps his short and bloody reign was a radical, violent experiment meant to expose the hypocrisy of Rome's system. The monster we know today may largely be a cartoon drawn by his enemies. As always, the truth is far more complex, and perhaps far more terrifying. Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We value your thoughts greatly. Let us know in the comments.